really big improvement here. Very pleased. And we'll see if it falls on its face after 5 seconds. So I'll power boost it. 3, 2, 1, go. 60. And there we go. Big power cuts, cutting back, barely accelerating now. Wow, it just came up with the gray bars, huge. So the 5-second limitation is still there. Hello and welcome to another Out of Spec Reviews video. You join me in Fort Collins, Colorado, charging up a Mustang Mach-E GT. This is a model year 23. It has some newer improvements, newer software, and it's been a little while since we've fully evaluated Mach-E. I want to say 2 years, maybe going on 3 years now, since we've done some deep dives into this car. Since the car launched, Ford has updated it with some different charging profiles, different acceleration profiles, different one-pedal tuning, and to be totally honest, the GT is the one I've spent the least amount of time with. Of course, we've done the rear-wheel drive big battery, the California Route 1, a ton on this channel. We've done extended range all-wheel drive, which is that same battery but with dual motor, and we've done the GT Performance, which is this car but with a little bit more power. I think 50 extra pound-feet of torque, different wheels, much nicer wheels than these, nicer seats, bigger brakes. 100% I would go for the GT Performance over the regular GT. But what's surprising is I'm seeing a ton of just regular GTs around that are non-performances, and I kind of want to figure out why. So I figured we'd go for a drive, similar in-depth driving review today of the Mach-E GT Non-Performance. Figure out, I've driven them before, but not in depth. Figure out how it handles on my good twisty mountain roads around here, and walk you through some of the testing procedures, and we'll just go for a drive in the Mach-E GT, the one I've spent the least amount of time with. So let's go figure out why I keep seeing this trim level around when I'm over here saying, get the performance, spend the extra $5,000 or whatever it is for the mag ride, the big brakes, the good wheels, the good seats. It's like you're already almost at 70 grand. Just spend a little bit more, get the good one. I don't know. Let's go find out what's going on here with this trim. So here it is, the Mustang Mach-E GT. This has the large battery pack, so it's about 99 kilowatt hour gross. And since we've tested Mach-E, they've actually issued some software updates to allow for 91 kilowatt hour usable, up from 88. So there's a little bit more usable energy in there. Now it was cold last night, so I brought the car over. I plugged it here to this EVgo DC fast charger. About 1 hour ago, we saw a peak of 33 kilowatts. We're rolling up on 1 hour. We're only getting 23 kilowatts at 85%. So it's better than the 12 kilowatts this used to do above 80%. So we need to play around with the charging. This is not a good charging test. We'll do some more, but I wanted to heat up the battery because Mach-E GT has a lot of power, well over 400 horsepower. I'll give you all the specs in the inside, but when the battery is cold, you can't get that much out of it. So I basically drove it hard, DC fast charged it up pretty high for an hour, and hopefully that will get the battery warm. We'll take a look at the logs. Love the color here in this orange color combination, really beautiful. And of course, dual motor. It does not have magnetic ride control, and it has, I would say, probably, or at least in my opinion, way worse seats than the nicer one. You can see it just has like the standard Mach-E seats, maybe a little bit more aggressive in this sort of Alcantara and leather. The GT Performance seats have this incredible little back support. It's really a nice upgrade, I would think. So let's jump in, let's get the OBD stuff going. Let's take a look at our battery logs. I'm gonna probably restart the charging session because EVgo has a 1 hour limit on these. And we're at 59 minutes right now. We've only put in 30 kilowatt hours. And a lot of that is just down to the Mach-E having such a low voltage battery pack that even hooked up to this at 100 amps or 120 amp output, yeah, this thing's at like 300 and something volts instead of 400 and something volts like a Rivian or an e-tron or other. So Ford really gave this car a very low voltage battery pack. Same on the Lightning. I can't figure out why, but it means charging is just a pain in the butt. That is one of this car's downfalls, and I've said that since the beginning. Yep, and there we go. Our charging session just ended. So let's restart this charging session. Let's get the OBD hooked up, and let's go see if all of these improvements, these small software updates since the car launched, has made it any better. Will you join me inside the Mach-E now? And we are at 90% state of charge, but I've got all the nerdy data for us to take a look at through this drive. Now, these videos are really for the super nerds. This is for people thinking about buying Mach-E or EV enthusiasts or driving enthusiasts. So that's why they're a little bit long. We're going to go through everything I've set up here that I'm interested in. And I've sort of customized this view for things. So let me walk you through. I'll just keep this phone down here while we're driving, but I'll walk you through everything I'll be monitoring. So we have our high voltage battery state of charge. This is basically the entire battery pack's state of charge right here, this top left, not with buffer. The user displayed 90% is this 90.5. And so that would be considering the usable battery pack state of charge, if you will. We have 75.55 kilowatt hours worth of energy remaining. Now, I'm not sure if that's including buffers or not, but interesting. I've put on here to see if when the grills are open or closed, so they do have little flaps in the front grill of the Mach-E. And when there's a big cooling request, perhaps when we're driving it hard, those will open up, or at least during fast charging. This is the amperage requested to the charger, at least according to the car. It's requesting 89 amps. We're only getting 61 amps from into the battery pack. Some of that could be going to heat and some other items as well, so that seems pretty reasonable. Our charger power limit makes no sense. 103 kilowatt peak. That could be with regen. So it's possible it'll allow 103 kilowatt regen at 91%. So I think that's what that number is saying. I got to drive a bit to play around. It's been a while since I've done this with Mach-E. We have our high voltage battery voltage. You can see very high state of charge and charging and only 383 volts. Mach-E is a very low voltage car here. This is the current going into the battery pack. That's this plus this equals 23 kilowatts or so going in. We have our battery pack temperatures, 13 degrees Celsius on the coldest temperature sensor, 16 on the hottest. Very close temperature. You can see the Mach-E's coolant inlet is 12 degrees C. So it's actually trying to cool the battery pack a little bit from where it is right now. Very interesting. This is the charge port temperature on the DC side. This is on the inlet side of the vehicle. This is a variation of voltage across all of the different modules, and then we can see that the coolant heater is actually running just under 1 kilowatt, but I think that could be for the cabin heat request that I have right here. I've been running the heater in the cabin. So that's everything I'll be monitoring on that phone while I'll be driving. Let's camera up the car and let's go for a drive, and we'll do the low speed stuff first, drive it around the city. I won't repeat a lot of the things I said when I first did the deep dive in the Mach-E, but I'll touch on everything I'm feeling and thinking about as I drive. And then we're going to jump into the mountains and do some real performance driving, which I'm looking forward to. In this video, we're actually not going to be doing any highway driving because I'm saving that for a future video where I want to talk about Blue Cruise 1.2, which is the reason Ford sent me this car. If I go here to settings, driver assistance, and I just show you this really quick, you can see this car is lane change assist. Also, lots of small improvements to Blue Cruise in this 1.2 update. Then we'll have actually 2 videos dedicated to this update. We're going to run it in the Hogback Challenge, and then we're also going to just do a general highway drive, basically what would normally be the highway portion of this video, talking about how Blue Cruise works and all that stuff. So 92%, Alyssa came, we got some lunch, we let this thing charge up forever, but we need all that juice because I got a lot of driving to do, and I really wanted the battery to be warm and up top for some of our performance driving in the canyons. Mach-E really does not charge that well up top, but honestly, the biggest issue of today was that EVgo 50 kilowatt charger. This is about the fastest charger we have in Fort Collins. There's one at a GM dealer all the way on the other side of town. But crazy just how few DC fast chargers we have in our town at Fort Collins. So let's camera up, let's hit the road. Join me inside of the Mach-E GT now, and we are charged up to 94% indicated, which is 88.22% on the actual battery pack. We're at about, 14 or 15 degrees Celsius average temperature, which is good. Let's actually start this thing up really quick. So there we are. Let's see if our power meter shows any bars. No, so we're looking good. There's a very small power meter in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, which is only for GT or GT Performance. And it basically gives you these little gray dots when there's a power limitation, but looks like we're warm enough now to get full power out of the vehicle. Now, Mach-E should have en route battery preconditioning as part part of this newer update in this vehicle, but I haven't been able to fully figure out how to actually activate it or to know when it's activated. There's a great thread on the Mach-E forum that shows, you know, some of this OBD data showing how it's warming up and some of that situation. So let's just go for a drive in this car and talk a little bit more. I guess two annoying things about it. I'm going to try and get the annoying things away up front, and then we can enjoy it a little bit more. Oh, Volvo C40 here in the parking lot. The first is that Ford really doesn't display to the user much data at all. There's really no easy way to set a charging limit in the vehicle without doing a location, which is super frustrating as someone who wants to take care of their battery pack. I want to charge this thing to 50, 60, 70, 80% every day, not a full hundo. And you know, they put big buffers in this battery because they expect everyone to full charge it, but it's like, okay, maybe set 100% and then have a little boost function if you want to get more than that, you know, for overextended charging. The Lightning has a little bit different strategy than the Mach-E when it comes to managing DC fast charging. For example, the Lightning will only DC fast charge to 90% and then it stops. You actually have to go into the system and tell it to go to 100, which I think is really interesting. And so Ford's trying to figure out their, you know, long-term warranty costs, I imagine, balanced against users of the vehicle. But there are a few of us out there, the nerds, who are really going to take care of their cars and want all the data, want to see kilowatt charging speeds. And I feel like, okay, we're kind of left in the dark with this stuff here. Now, thankfully, we have the OBD plugged in, and so we get all the data that we're looking for. Some of it should be displayed in the vehicle to the user, though. The second annoying thing is actually the seating position of Mach-E. I've always kind of had this issue in this car. I just sit too high. When I get in ID4, as an example, I sit on the ground. Model Y also sit too high. Model 3, I'm on the ground. But, you know, ID4 really gets the seating position right. The Mach-E GT Performance has a much better seat than the regular GT, and I find I fit better in that car, just feel more comfortable than the seats here in the regular GT. But that is all personal preference, and thankfully you can choose either one. So let's choose our drive modes to do this sort of one pedal start. That's kind of where I want to start here. And there's 3 drive modes in Mach-E, which if you've seen any of our videos or own a car, you're familiar. There's Whisper, Engage, and Unbridle. I'm pretty sure it used to be Unbridled. I don't know. I think it was, but now it just says Unbridle. You guys let me know if it ever said Unbridled. I just, for some reason, remember it having a D at the end. But here we are. We're on in the Engage driving profile. By the way, if I look at software updates, it doesn't actually tell me what update I'm on. I'm on the one just before they put the camera on the screen here, but then I also have some prototype Blue Cruise software, which will be rolling out to all of the cars. So I think this is kind of on a different software track than most of the consumer vehicles will have, but I believe all of the driving and actual UI is almost one small iteration behind where everyone else is at the moment. They do get over-the-air updates. I think some early ones had to go into a dealer to get updates, and now they're over-the-air capable. But basically, back to the driving portion, we're going to start in Engage mode with one pedal drive on. Now, if you remember any of my old videos of Mach-E, I actually would drive them with one pedal driving off. Same with the F-150 Lightning. And I was a little bit annoyed with how it had a really hard time bringing the vehicle to a stop. It was a little bit jerky, and the one pedal was a little bit delayed. Like, you'd put your foot on the accelerator pedal and there was a lag, and then you'd hit the brake pedal and it was really weird. And you know, I've been driving this around for the last few days, and I have to say it is improved, but it's not perfect. It's nowhere near Tesla seamless pedal inputs, in my opinion, which is really just weird to me. I'm not totally sure why, but let me just show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to come here about 10 miles an hour, take my foot off the accelerator pedal, big regen, kind of coasts, we're still rolling, and then it grabs brakes at the end. It's nowhere near as jerky as it used to be, but that same slowdown profile happens where you get a big hit of regen, and then you end up in a coast. And you coast for maybe a 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, maybe not that long, but definitely a 1 Mississippi and some. And then it's like friction brakes, but it's just like pull the speed down and hit the brakes right at the same time. And so to me, if I'm inching it through traffic, here, I'll do it again. Full lift off, big regen, and then it grabs the brakes. It actually grabbed the brakes even after I said that. So yeah, definitely the same annoyances as last time, but so much smoother. And occasionally it just gets it so right. Yeah, really nice job of improving it, but not perfect. But I would say this gets a pass, and it's good enough where I now recommend and I use the one pedal drive function in Mustang Mach-E. I think it's a really nice feature, and it flows pretty well, and it's usable, and it doesn't really annoy me if I'm not thinking about it too much. There, it was a little bit of a harder grab. So that's been improved, and I'm pleased with that, and I definitely am using one pedal driving more, and I like it quite a bit. So there we go, very good. Funny thing is, when you use one pedal driving, there's an L function on the shifter. It makes no difference at all. And here we are coming again to a stop. It lets off, and then it grabs brakes. I still can't figure out why they do that. It's a very weird situation. But I think they're one of the only ones that do. And the Lightning, you really notice it in the Lightning. I do not use one pedal driving in the Lightning. But some other things I had issues with in the Mach-E sort of driving around town were with the pedal inputs, and specifically when in one pedal driving mode or with increased regen. The brake pedal, if you were cruising down the road, and let's say you had, I don't know, 30-40% throttle application, maybe even less, you're just cruising along, and you would do a quick lift off and hit the brakes. Your light just turned red, boom, on the brakes. What would actually happen is you would engage the friction brakes to slow you down, and you'd find the pedal pressure you're looking for, and you would slow down where you want. And then like 2 seconds later, regen would kick on. And so there was this lag of regen. So now you're already got your brake pedal pressure set to where you want to slow down, and you're comfortable. And then the car goes like a parachute comes out the back, and that's regen kicking in. And to me, that was always a little bit awkward in this car. So let's try it again. We're doing about 50 miles an hour on the brakes. So much better. I mean, it still is a lag, but it's gone from, a 1 Mississippi and some to like a very quick response. So as you're finding the right brake pedal pressure you need, and that actually was totally seamless on the second time. Really, really big improvement here. Very pleased. And I can definitely tell that when I first hit the brake pedal, it goes friction brakes first. And that's actually good for safety because you get ABS, you get, the car doesn't know what type of emergency situation you're in when you quickly snap off the accelerator pedal and go to the brake. Now, if you're cruising smoothly, this was never really a problem. I can lift off, I can ease onto the brakes, and it feels great. The reason this is a little bit weird for those who don't know is the brake pedal in the Mach-E is a brake-by-wire system, which means that it's not only controlling the actual physical brake actuators on the disc brakes, but it's also controlling regen. And so it's basically doing computer calculations, which is how much can I pull from the motors and how much can I pull from the physical brakes on the car. And that process, there's a little bit of logic that needs to be programmed and fine-tuned, and it has been definitely fine-tuned here. Quite a windy day. Yeah, really nice on the brake pedal. Very pleased. All of the qualities of Mach-E are still good. The noise performance is incredible. It's a very quiet car as you cruise along. It's a little bit, almost feels a little bit over-engineered to the inputs to me, like the suspension design. The steering's got a little bit too much padding in it. I'm not a huge fan of the steering wheel or seating position, but it's designed to tune out all of the fine, imperfections or vibrations that come through the car. One thing, now that I'm thinking about it, speaking of vibrations, is when the AC compressor would rip on Mach-E, it would actually vibrate the steering wheel a little bit. And I haven't had it, it's been cold. We haven't needed to cool the battery. I haven't driven it hard or to cool the cabin, so I haven't felt it do that yet. But that, I'm sure, has been tuned out from the early ones. Everything about the newer car just feels slightly better put together, and small iterative updates, which, if you come from the Tesla world, that makes sense. If you look at parts from a Model 3 today to a Model 3 that was built originally, I mean, every little thing from the door grab inserts to the door handle actuators, like, they're all different, but the car looks the same. Traditional automakers don't really operate that way. They kind of build a car, and then they'll do a refresh, 3 or 4 years into the production run, where they'll do, let's say, all the small little things. They wait for that, and then they sunset that car and bring out a new model. Ford seems to be taking a little bit of the new automaker approach, which is fix on the go or update on the go. Certainly from a software perspective, no question they're behind Tesla and Rivian and Lucid in their capability to send over-the-air updates. They're slow. That's just truth, and they need to improve the over-the-air update speed and communication to the user, and literally all they have to do is copy Rivian. Rivian tells you every little thing they change. It's wonderful. But they are updating the cars, and so they are getting better, and they are changing components, and they are changing software after the initial run, which is kind of unlike any automaker has done in the past. And we're starting to see maybe Hyundai, Kia do a little bit of this, where you can bring their cars into a dealer and get an update that adds battery preconditioning and some other things. Very nice, fun handling as always. Mach-E's very tail happy. That is one quality I do like about it. And it's always kind of a blast to throw these around. Traction control stayed out of my way for the most part there. It was grabbing a little bit of brake. So I'm looking forward to getting this out on the twisty roads here in a bit. But I just have to give props to the Ford team. They operate, you know, they definitely are setting an example from a existing automaker with these small improvements around the car. And that's something I've never really seen before from a traditional automaker up until very recently. And this car is really a good example of it. They're still behind the new guys when it comes to all the small little updates and keeping their customers engaged and informed, and I would say pleased with the product. But it's better than nothing, let's be honest. So a lot of my annoyances with Mach-E when I was driving early ones, to the point where I would, like, if it was in the driveway, I kind of just wouldn't get in the car because I hated the inputs, I hated the one pedal drive. These have pretty much largely been solved, and I've actually really enjoyed driving the Mach-E around. And, you know, it is the most first world problem to have, but I'm very lucky I get to test cars, you guys know, and we always have stuff in the driveway. We have EV6 GT, we have the Plaid there, we have this, we have the Model 3 Performance in the driveway, and those were kind of all at the end of the driveway today. And I actually find myself getting in the Mach-E because you know, I just kind of enjoy the size of it. I enjoy the maneuverability. I like the viewpoint out the front. I think it's a very easy car to live with, and that is very different than my original viewpoint on Mach-E, which is kind of like, yeah, it's a great car on paper, it does everything kind of okay, but for me as a driving enthusiast, it always left me wanting more from the small inputs. And now that those are fixed, I'm digging this thing. So let's go take it up into the canyons. Let's see how it drives when we really start pushing it. We'll put it into unbridled mode. But I'm pleased here with the small improvements. And yeah, let's go take it up into the hills. I can't wait to see what happens. We need to try the 5-second acceleration thing, because that's something that you guys have brought up a bunch, which is at wide open throttle, there's a 5-second limit to how hard you can go. And yeah, well, we're gonna test that. Got to do all the things. Let's go do it. So to the specs of Mach-E GT, it's about 480 horsepower or so and around 600 pound-feet of torque. Big numbers. But like with every electric car, as you guys know, the battery has to be warm and it needs to be pretty fully charged to get that. So, you know, as the state of charge drops, your performance will drop. And I've been thinking about maybe doing some of these acceleration tests over different state of charge ranges. And the car that really got me thinking about it was the EV6 GT, which is brutal when you get like below 50% state of charge. The thing barely moves. I was just blown away by that. So let's kick it into unbridled mode and start playing around with it a little bit. I'm hearing something fly around the backseat, but I thought I cleared everything out. I have no idea what it could be. Not sure. So we'll start with an acceleration up here in just a second, but let's talk about Mach-E GT's performance situation, or I should say the GT Non-Performance performance situation. This car is basically a turned up Mach-E extended range all-wheel drive. We are rolling on 20-inch wheels, a little bit bigger tire. The tires on this car, by the way, are a square setup, 245/45/20s. They're Continental cross contact tires. Nothing super extreme here, but should be okay when the weather gets a little bit colder, which it should at the top of the hill. We have 2 permanent magnet motors as before, just upsized, and this I believe has the same motors as the GT Performance, but it makes around 50 pound-feet less, so maybe the thermal performance will be better. We'll see. I think the battery pack is one of the limitations for its thermal performance. So let's do a hard acceleration right here, and we'll see if it falls on its face after 5 seconds. So I'll power boost it. 3, 2, 1, go. 60. And there we go, big power cuts, cutting back, cutting back, cutting back, barely accelerating now. Wow, it just came up with the gray bars, huge. So the 5-second limitation is still there. And the gray bars aren't going away right now, actually. They're slowly dropping. Let's just drive easily and see how they come out. Now our battery pack is at 13 degrees Celsius on the cold side and 17 degrees Celsius on the hot one. Our inlet temperature is 12 degrees Celsius. So just as a baseline for this. Now the road's gonna be a little bit dusty, a little snowy, maybe even at the top, but it's warm out right now. It's almost 50 degrees. So we're not gonna go super hard, but we'll get a feel for how it drives. It's of course got salt and schmutz all over the road. So it's gonna be a bit slippery in places. So now the one thing I really loved about the GT performance of the Mach-E were the mag ride seats. Those were truly amazing. I cannot believe how dusty the road is right now. But one thing I can already tell you is the brake pedal is so much more to my liking. Now we're back to full power and full power is gone. Wow. So what's amazing is the extended range all-wheel drive definitely didn't have a big power cut like this. Those, including the rear-wheel drive, what I would find when I drive them hard is I would get into turtle mode after a while because it would just limit the amount of current that you could flow in and out of the battery pack over a period of time. It was just some arbitrary number that they said basically if you had this much current flown in this time window, you have to chill out. And this does have an unbridled extend setting to basically lock you out of this limitation, but the unbridled extend setting is very particular to get in. You have to have the car totally set up right, and it gives you almost no power. And by almost no power, it's certainly drivable, but it's for like long track sessions where you don't get into turtle mode from overheat. Basically, they just limit the power output of the car. So my viewpoint is I'll just drive the car a little bit slower, and you know, I think that can help it a little bit. But it's also dusty and nasty up here, but I can't believe we're already running into power limitations right off the bat. So that 5-second limitation, which I don't think I'd actually ever experienced because I've never run a Mach-E GT or GT Performance up here in Colorado. Yeah, I think this is my first time experiencing it. So before we talk a little bit more about this limit, as we come through traction control trying to keep us on the road, it's just like grit, grip, grit, grip. Let's talk a little bit about GT Performance. GT Performance gives you the suspension, and that's the big one for me. You get the mag ride that makes the car ride so much better behaved on a normal road. You get, you know, totally this Mach-E bounce, rear end bounce that's going on is almost removed with a mag ride. You get a much less oversteering character and a much higher speed character. It's actually fast on a back road, so I would totally spec up for that. Just wheel, tire, suspension, braking package that you get in that car, and the seats are so much better, and I think it looks better. But here we are, huge power limitation already. You guys have driven with me on this road many times, and we've had Polestar 2 Performance, which is an older platform from like Volvo. It's an XC40 Recharge that's not really built for performance, and we have shredded up this entire road and never seen a power limitation. So that just puts it into perspective that, you know, for the next generation of electric powertrains from Ford, we're really going to be looking to thermal longevity, because I'm wide open throttle right now and it's not climbing that much. So that's a bit of a disappointment and almost worse than the regular all-wheel drive ones that we've had up here. But we're going to continue and keep driving and enjoy this for a little bit. Okay, so GT Performance is better than GT. For actually daily driving, I prefer it more so than even up here. I've never really done hard canyon blasts in GT Performance that require a hill climb and a lot of power output. I've driven them on flowing roads, and I thought that was okay. But how are we performing up here on the road? So I'm not going fast at all, as you guys know, but there is now a physical traction control button to my left, which I'm going to engage once and hold for advanced track off. And now we have, you know, the whole car is in my hands. So one pedal drive is not active, and actually regen is not active when you do this, which is very weird. So I'm wide open throttle as an example, and I go brakes, and we're only using friction brakes right now. So that's weird. Why would it cut regen when you turn stability control off? The only thing I can think is if you're crossed up in a situation, they don't have good enough tuning on the regen drag control to feel comfortable with that. Now, just because I don't think the GoPro is going to actually see this power limitation, I just want to show our viewers right here, if I pull up the camera, these little gray lines right here, that's the power limitation bar. And we had full power when we started, and just doing the climb, these have shown up. If we take a look at our temperatures, they're really not even up all that much. We're at 15 low, 19 high, and 13 in. Coolant heater probably for the cabin is going, but everything's looking normal. I can smell the brakes slightly, but very interesting that when you turn off traction control right down here, you get no regen. You can see the bars are now going away. We have full power active again. Now I think if I just sit here and wait, we can get it into unbridle extend, which is probably something we'll do just to see how that goes. So advanced track on, traction control off. Let's just see if we drive it gently really quick, if we get regen. So you can retain regen if you just turn traction control off, but leave stability on. Okay, very weird. So let's do that. Let me just go off on the heated seat, off on the heated steering wheel. Okay, a little bit of air conditioning could be nice, because it is getting a bit toasty up here. I can see just the end of the power bar has 1 or 2 little gray lines left on it. All right, well, let's just go drive it some more and talk a little bit more about handling characteristics. Mach-E's really funny because if you come out of a corner like this and stab the throttle, you get oversteer everywhere. And that's really a character that I didn't notice so much in the GT Performance. And stuff is flying around. It is a very weird car where you kind of just like stick the front end in and it's always just, the rear is always coming around for some fun. I enjoy that character, of course, but it is not necessarily the fastest thing. And so it is very odd to me that you can't turn stability full off and you lose regen, which as a performance driving enthusiast, I want to have full control over the car and I want to have, regen on all the time. So let's just hammer it up this hill. So we got big power right now. The power limitation's just coming on there at the end of the acceleration. Let's just see how low it goes if we just stand on it. Now, I've heard that the contactors can actually weld on a period of time on some early Mach-E's if you stay in the throttle so much. So we actually have limited regen there, but that could have been hard brake application. Still on the throttle, wide open. We have about half of our power available to us, barely gaining any acceleration. Very little regen again. What if I turn traction control fully on? Let's try it now. Very little regen as well. Put it into L. And yeah, basically just trying to test the thermal performance. Does it just go to half and stay there, or will it limit us all the way down to turtle mode? Because I would say, to me, if I lived on this road, this is kind of how I would drive to get to my house. I mean, I drive fairly quickly on back roads, as you guys know. And from a chassis standpoint, it's really good. I actually like the way the Mach-E is set up. You can go pretty hard into corners. It's very nicely balanced off throttle. On throttle gives you a lot more rear than front in typical Mustang character. Just keeping it pinned down the straightaway. We're down to about 40% of available power. There's no way it could break into triple digits with the power limitation we have right now, I would say. Chassis feels good though. It's a very, very nicely set up car, even considering it's not the mag ride one. On a bumpy road, I don't like this car so much because the rear end's always bouncing around, but like this is really not bad at all. Really not bad at all. I'm seeing a road with a snowflake in it on the screen, but I think that might be temperature related. Not totally sure. Just keeping it pinned through the S's here. Still pinned. You just drive everywhere flat, left foot brake, keep it pinned. So yeah, just keep the throttle on. It's a momentum car. It feels like a Miata right now. And you brake with your left foot. I'm still floored. Still floored. Still floored. Still floored. Oh my gosh, it really limits everything. What the heck? So it basically limits you to what seems like 30% of available power. And then, maybe it recovers kind of quickly after that. But holy smokes, there's like no acceleration left. So yeah, just pretend it has no power. It basically puts you in an unbridled extend for itself because it's not letting anything happen. And we're gonna hammer it up the hill. Why not? Let's see how long it can take it for. I've gotten Mach-E's into turtle mode out here on this road before, and I'm curious to see if their drivetrain tuning is different. In terms of brake pedal feel, so much better now with the newer software. I can get on the brakes. It's totally no ABS feel in the brake pedal bump. Oh, it did that nicely, actually. That was surprisingly good. But we are going a lot slower because of the power reduction than I normally would through here. And we'll come a little bit slow up to the crest of the hill. Love it up here. Beautiful day for a drive. Just need to be very cautious of the salt all over the road, so that's why we're taking it nice and easy. Big power on the downhill. What a disappointing situation, really, to have this sporty vehicle and not be able to use the acceleration really much at all. I knew it was bad. I did not know it was this bad. So to the Mach-E owners that I've sort of been like, 5 seconds is good, like, you know, it's not that big of a deal. This is a big deal. We're figuring out this together for you non-Mach-E guys. Look at that hard power out of the corner. I'm matted right now. That's everything it has. And it's not moving. We're barely gaining speed. Come on, Mach-E. Let's go. What the heck is going on here? So the brake is actually really good in this car. I really like the tuning on it. We're going uphill and the car has very limited acceleration, so we're not getting them hot or anything. But we're just silently cruising along. From a handling perspective, it's really fun without the big power, because now you don't have the tail coming out everywhere and you get a little bit more of this just neutral balance. A little bit of tail out. Let's see if we can slide it around here. If I just go advanced track off. Let's see if it will let me do enough to slide the car. Advanced track off, big power. A little bit front wheel, rear wheel situation. Because, you know, we just had changes in grip there. ABS in there, no regen. Coming out of this corner, big power, I'm floored. And it doesn't even have enough power to pull itself up. Yeah, brake pedal definitely changes its character when you lose regen. You're relying just on friction brakes here. But it's not bad. It's not good for brake temperatures over time. Very interesting performance. So here we are right at the top of the hill. So this would be when everything's kind of at its hottest. So let's take a look at its performance here. We're at 22 degrees Celsius on the battery pack, so it's still stone cold. Coolant heater's gone up to 3 kilowatts, but I think that maybe that's coolant heating and cooling, could be. The charge port's warmed up for some reason, the DC inlet. Yep, so interesting. Yeah, we're using about 3 kilowatts just sitting here for cabin and battery conditioning. Everything's looking normal aside from that. Yeah, very weird performance. I guess I've never really driven this car hard on an uphill like that, and I really don't feel like we were even that hard on it. But this power limitation is a real problem for enthusiast drivers. I've never experienced it like that before. So you can do some slides, which is good, a little neutral slide. Once you kind of get it set, you just mat foot down. It uses the front motor to pull you out. And we'll go traction control back on, so we get some regen. So there's our regen kicking in now. And let's see how it does regenning down the hill. Quiet, easy to drive from a chassis standpoint, arguably a bit more oversteer than I would tune into the car, but I like that, I appreciate it. I'm just surprised they went so crazy with this tail happy behavior. And there you go, Mach-E. Man, I really got to get the EV6 GT up here and do this same road. Maybe I'll do that later today, actually. That could be really interesting. Keep an eye out for that video. So there you go, Mustang Mach-E GT. The software updates have improved the car from an around town perspective, from a highway driving perspective, and it's no longer, I would say, annoying to drive. It really drives nice, and I like the inputs, and I find myself getting in this car to do the daily stuff. In terms of performance driving, the powertrain is still very much the limitation here. I mean, no question, I'm still looking at a whole bunch of gray bars. If I floor it, it's got very little performance. So the powertrain is still the limitation, which is really a shame. The charging performance of the car may have been improved. Keep an eye out for an updated charging performance test on this car, which I'm going to be doing sometime in the near future, a 0 to 100% basically. Now that the above 80s unlocked, there's a little bit more capacity. And yeah, I have to say the battery pack is cold, but they have this arbitrary limit in there for how much performance you can pull out of it. So from an around town perspective, I give this a huge improvement over the previous. From a performance perspective, all of the metal bits, the chassis, the braking is much improved. Steering's always a little bit weird, but it's a heavy SUV that's electric. They're all a little bit weird. Like, I have no issues with the way that the car gets down a back road, and it actually is really fun to get down a back road because you're always kind of on managing that rear axle more than the front. The GT Performance, you're actually managing both axles. It really lets the front end do a little bit more work. It's way better set up for speed. This is set up maybe just for a little bit of showing off to your passengers. But you know, all of that work really just goes unappreciated with such a poor powertrain calibration, with these massive limitations, with you know, this battery pack that seemingly the contactors are the weak link in the high voltage junction box. This is just my understanding. I think they're doing this to protect the ancillary components, and you know, unfortunately they can say, well, it's a technical limitation, but like very few automakers have the limitation as bad as this. There hasn't been an electric car that I can't overheat. I've overheated all of them. This we overheated on that first acceleration, and we're stuck with the limitation the whole way up the hill. Polestar 2, even coming up here, I couldn't overheat. I had to take it out to the runway to overheat the thing. So Ford has some work to do with thermals, and I think it's not going to happen to this generation. It's been 3 years after launch almost. I don't think we'll see it. Perhaps on the next generation Mustang Mach-E we'll see it. So Lightning's already much better as well. So thank you so much for watching another Out of Spec Reviews video. If you're buying a Mustang Mach-E, my recommendation is still the GT Performance. I love the way that car gets down a road. I love the daily driving. I love the seats. I love the look. I see Mach-E GT Performance is now in town, and I'm like, oh, damn, that thing looks good. I don't really actually see the benefit of getting the GT over an extended range all-wheel drive. You can't use the acceleration for more than a few seconds. So if you're a stoplight drag racer, 0 to 60s, maybe. But anything above 60, you're in a big limitation. And, you know, at that point, you're just at the same acceleration level as a Mach-E all-wheel drive coming up here. It's not like it has that much more wheel and tire. It's not like it has that much better suspension. You know, I would just go for an extended range all-wheel drive. And so to me, that's kind of, if you're going to higher-end Mach-E, you go Mach-E 4X or you go GT Performance. But I would sort of skip over this model. And one thing I'd actually like to test is a Mach-E standard range. But never had the chance to do that, actually. So there you go. The reason this car is here is not for performance evaluation. It's here for all the Blue Cruise stuff. So keep an eye on all of that coming on this channel very soon. We're going to do a highway, or it may already be up. I don't know what order. But keep an eye for Blue Cruise 1.2. I'm really looking forward to testing that out. But I figured since I had the car for an extended period of time, which wasn't the original plan, I begged Ford to let me keep it to make these videos for you. And they said, sure, yep, no problem. And yeah, I'm glad I was able to test it out because, yeah, I met the lead chassis engineer on Mach-E. I believe her name is Heather Fadulo. She was great. And she really understood a lot of, you know, my concerns about the car. And yeah, it was really great to talk to her. GT Performance, that's the way to go. Thanks for watching. See you in another one soon. Bye-bye.